In his play Twelfth Night, William Shakespeare wrote, "Be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." The question this presents to us is, when we thrust opportunities for greatness upon the people we lead, what will they do with it? How do we help them to seize that chance? Kimberly Allen has some ideas about that. Dr. Allen is a popular international speaker, a best-selling author, and a specialist in inspiring people to achieve more in their lives and their careers. Here is Dr. Kimberly Allen on how to increase accountability and responsibility.
A lot of the problems that you face as managers and leaders tend to take care of themselves in an environment of high responsibility and accountability. One leader put it perfectly when he said, "The price of greatness is responsibility." So as every organization aspires to that high level of greatness, that's just not possible without responsibility and accountability. So we're going to look at how to develop that in your organization today and make sure your organization is a great one. So where do we start? We start with the ability to influence people, because you cannot cultivate responsibility and accountability if you can't influence people. So how do you influence people? That would be the next question. You start by building relationships. People feel much more accountable to people they know versus people they know of. So if you want people to be accountable to you and the organization, you need to know them, build relationship. Another way to influence people is to set the role model example. Show people what responsibility and accountability look like so they can see the example in you. The next way to influence people is to demonstrate strong values, beliefs, and vision. Don't just talk about it. Demonstrate it. Because people respond more to what they see from you than what they hear. Now, before we go on, I want to ask everybody to do something for me. So put your pens down. Everybody look up here. I want you to take your hand and I want you to make a circle with your hand just like this. I want everybody to take that circle and put it to your chin just like this. Okay. Now I said chin. Some of you even heard me say chin because I could hear your rumblings, and you're probably thinking, she said chin, but I don't want to make her look stupid, so I'm going to follow her lead. That's what your followers do. If you say one thing and do another, they're going to follow what they see you do, not what they hear you say. People respond more to what they see from you than what they hear. People don't care what you call a mission statement and hang on a wall. People don't care what you call your core values and put in a pretty frame. They want to see that mission statement and those core values come to life in every decision you make and every action you take. That's what influences people. But core values can't just be about your organization. You also need to focus on personal values and helping your employees clarify their own personal values. Now you might be thinking, whoa, just stop right there, you've crossed the line. Personal values, that's too personal. That's none of our business. Well, let me share with you how critical personal values are. For high levels of organizational commitment in your organizations, studies have proven that you need clarity on personal values. In fact, here's what the studies show. Studies show that the highest levels of organizational commitment exist when there is a high level of clarity on personal values and a high level of clarity on organizational values. Doesn't that make sense? So your employees understand what the organizational values are and they understand their own personal values. The second highest level of organizational commitment exists when there's high clarity on personal values, but low clarity on organizational values. So even if your organization hasn't clearly identified and clarified the organizational values, as long as the employees understand their own personal values, they are still committed. The lowest level of organizational commitment exists when there is low clarity on personal values. And you would think low clarity on organizational values, right? Wrong. The lowest levels of organizational commitment exist when there's low clarity on personal values and high clarity on organizational values. So as an organization or as a manager, if you are continuing to reiterate the organizational values without helping employees clarify their own personal values, you're actually hurting organizational commitment. You're making it worse. Organizational values are the yardstick by which all behavior should be measured against, organizational and personal values. This is how we judge our behavior and ask ourselves, is this acceptable? In attempting to create an environment of responsibility and accountability, most organizations depend on policy. Would you agree? They depend on policy. Here's the problem. Policy-driven organizations produce reluctant compliance. Values-driven organizations produce purposeful commitment. So think about this. In organizations that are completely policy-driven, you will produce compliance. People will follow the policy because they don't want to get into trouble. But it will be reluctant compliance. They will follow policy to your face when you're around. But as soon as you turn your back, they will undermine the policy and they will undermine your management. If instead you think about becoming a values-driven organization, people want to follow policy. People who have strong organizational values and strong personal values want to follow policy. So you want to shift the culture of your organization from a policy-driven culture to a values-driven culture. Then people will be much more committed. The studies prove it. Strong personal values are what make people want to do the right thing. I want to share a story with you. A CEO was getting ready to retire. He had about 6 months out to retirement, and he made a decision. He was going to promote from within his organization. This organization typically, when they needed a new CEO, would go outside of the organization and bring the new person in. So he said, no, I want to give my young executives the opportunity. So he pulled them all together in a room just like this, and he said, I am going to give one of you the opportunity to be the next CEO. Well, Jim was sitting in the back of the room, and he was so excited. He said, oh, I have an opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of this. And the CEO could see other people getting excited, and he said, not so fast. I have a project for you. I am going to give you a project. You're going to work on it for 6 months. Then we're going to come back together, and I'm going to see how well you did on this project. The CEO leaves the room. He comes back, and he sets in front of every single executive a seed. I want you to take this home. I want you to plant it. I want you to water it. I want you to take care of it. And then we're going to come back in 6 months, and we're going to look at your progress. So Jim goes home to his wife and tells her the story. And he says, this is so exciting. Don't you have a friend that owns a nursery? And his wife said, yes, I do. He said, let's go visit him. So they go down to the nursery, and they find all the best ideas for planting the seed, the best soil, what type of pot to put it in, what window to put it next to. And he takes it home, and he plants it. And a few weeks goes by, and nothing. He says, I don't know if your friend knows what he's doing, honey. She said, let's just give it some time. A few weeks goes by, further, and nothing. So he says, I can't listen to your friend anymore. So he gets on the computer and he looks into other companies. He finds an exotic company in another country. He imports some new soil, some new fertilizer. He transplants it. A few more weeks goes by and nothing. And by now, everyone back at the office is talking about how great their plants look. He's feeling pretty discouraged. The 6 months rolls around. It's time for the evaluation, and he didn't get a sprout. He took his plant in, he tried to hide it in the back corner, and the CEO came in and started looking at everyone's plants. He said, wow, oh, these are amazing. Oh, look how big that one is. Wow, who did this one? He gets all the way around the room, and he spots Jim's pot with nothing. He says, wow, whose is this? Jim said, that would be me, sir. He said, that's my plant. And the CEO said, Jim, I need you to come up here. He brings him up to the front with his plant, and he says, what happened? He says, I don't know, sir. He said, I tried so hard. My wife had a friend that owned a nursery. We tried that and his advice. I went to a foreign company that specialized in exotic soil and fertilizer. We tried that. I tried everything, sir. Please just know how hard I tried. I'm sorry I failed. And the CEO turned him around to the group and said, ladies and gentlemen, your next CEO. And the group was like, what? Why? Because he said he failed? Okay, well, I failed before. The CEO said, no, that's not why. Because 6 months ago, when we met together, I handed each and every one of you a boiled seed. None of you should have been able to grow a plant. Jim was the only one who chose to do the right thing even if it cost him a promotion. He chose to do the right thing even if it cost him his job. That's the kind of person I want for a CEO. When you sow honesty, you will reap prosperity. It may not happen today or a year from now. It may take a long time. Your personal values, those are the things that are going to drive you to do the right thing, just like this scenario. Now that we have identified the importance of the strong foundation of organizational values and personal values, how do you hold people accountable to that? You want to hold people in your organization accountable to your organizational values, and you also want to hold them accountable to their own personal values. How do you do that? You do it with what's called a 360-degree evaluation tool. How many of you in here have ever been evaluated using a 360-degree evaluation tool? All right, a few of you. For everybody, how many of you in your evaluations, whether it's 360-degree or a regular evaluation tool, how many of you have ever seen the core values listed in your evaluation? If you have, it's rare. Nobody. You're normal. Bet you've never heard that before. These core values should be the foundation of your organization and the foundation of your evaluation tools. But nobody's doing it that way. And one of the reasons you need to is because there's no other way to hold people accountable. So I met with a leader of an organization. He was venting with me about how he was frustrated with a lack of accountability and responsibility in his organization. He said nobody seems to want to take accountability for their actions, especially some of my managers. He said, we expect everyone in our organization to be responsible as a formal or informal leader. But how can we expect that if the people furthest up in the organization aren't doing that themselves? He said, how do I create more accountability? So I asked him a question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. And I want you to feel free to answer it out loud. Of these three choices, managers, subordinates, peers, who do you think has the most accurate assessment as to your effectiveness as a leader? Subordinates. Who would be second? Peers. Who would be last? Managers. Who evaluates you? Managers. He said the same thing, and finally the light bulb came on for him. So I tried to explain to him this concept of a 360-degree evaluation tool. With this tool, everyone evaluates you. Your managers, your subordinates, your peers, and sometimes even customers or vendors. People who come into contact with you on a regular basis give you input into this evaluation. Do you think that when somebody who is treating their employees poorly knows that their employees will be part of the evaluation process, do you think that they will be a little more motivated to take responsibility to change their behavior? Yes, absolutely. Do you think people in your organization who treat their peers poorly would have a little bit more of a motivation to be accountable if those peers were part of the evaluation process? You bet they would. One of the reasons that some managers treat their employees poorly is because there is no accountability. This tool provides that accountability. The most important areas that you want to hold people accountable to in an evaluation would be the core values. So I asked this leader of this organization, I said, what are your core values? He said, our core values are professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and excellence. I said, okay, these need to be the foundation of your 360-degree evaluation. So your 5 main categories are going to be those core values. And then you can create subcategories. So under professionalism, he could have things in his evaluation like dresses in a professional manner, treats subordinates and managers professionally, treats customers and vendors professionally, represents our organization in a professional manner. Under the category of respect, he could have subcategories that cover things like treats managers and subordinates with respect, acts in a manner that earns respect, treats everyone with importance regardless of your differences. And you know, that's really what respect means. Respect means importance. It means I'm going to treat you with importance even if we disagree on things. We may not agree on policy or culture or religion or politics, but I'm going to treat you with respect. Under the category of integrity, he could have subcategories like keeps commitments, makes principle-based ethical decisions, shows consistency between stated values and daily behavior. This is where you can hold people accountable to their personal values. So if somebody says they have a personal value of honesty, but they call in sick when they're not sick, there's a discrepancy there. So you can include that in the evaluation. Under dedication, he could have subcategories like is dedicated to the organizational mission, vision, and values. Is dedicated to his own personal values. Is dedicated to improving personal and interpersonal skills. Under the category of excellence, he could have subcategories that cover things like strives towards excellence by encouraging positive change, or improves excellence by taking input from others, or sets a positive example for continuing with excellence. So all of those subcategories can create the basis of the evaluation. I also shared with him that you can also incorporate somebody's technical skills. So maybe there's parts of the job of your employees that have technical skills that you want included in the evaluation. You can include those under dedication or excellence. So depending on your core values, you can create subcategories that fit your organization. So this executive that I was talking to loved the idea, and so he went to work right away to get it implemented. I checked back with him a year later to see how the process was going, and he said he experienced a drastic improvement in responsibility and accountability by using this tool. So let me show you how the tool works. Let's say that I'm going to use the tool on myself, which is, by the way, where you need to start. You need to start with yourself. Because as a manager or a leader, we might get through this whole section and you might think, this is a great idea. I'm going to make my employees do this. No, you need to start with yourself. Even if your organization doesn't adopt something like this on a formal basis, you can still do it on an informal basis. Just by doing that, you may set a good role model example that influences change in your organization. So let's say I'm going to do it on myself. And let's say that these 6 people are my direct reports or my subordinates right now. And that is my manager, and that is my manager. Say that I report to 2 different people. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 peers right here that I work with in my organization. And then on the back row, I've got 4 customers over there that interact with me on a regular basis, and I have 4 vendors over there that interact with me on a regular basis. So then I find somebody else in the organization who I can give these evaluation forms to. So I make out 20 evaluation forms, and I put them in an envelope marked confidential, and I give all 20 of those to this person. And I ask them, pass these out to these 20 people, have them mark the evaluation, and all they're going to mark is a 1 or a 0. Do you exhibit the trait on a regular basis, or do you not? That way you don't have to worry about recognizing someone's handwriting. You can also use a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, whatever makes you comfortable. The person hands them out, the people fill them out, and they return the evaluations to this person. Then I get all your evaluations back anonymously. So I don't know who rated me in what category. Do you think that might inspire people to be a little more honest? Yes. If you know that I'm not going to know who filled it out, you'll probably be more honest. So now I want to talk about the importance of mentoring to create a higher level of accountability and responsibility. Mentoring creates that strong accountability relationship because if you're spending time mentoring somebody, they're going to feel more accountable to you. This goes back to the beginning of our session today when I talked about influencing people. Well, if you want to influence people, mentoring is a great place to do that. You can establish a mentoring program in your organization by meeting with key individuals that you want to develop. And this is going to increase your accountability and responsibility. Mentoring is not as complicated as you might think. Because I think sometimes when people hear mentoring program, they think, ooh, that sounds complicated. It's not. It's really as simple as meeting with somebody for 30 minutes to 60 minutes once a week and talking about some important issues. There are some key areas that you want to focus on in mentoring. The first area is values. You want to focus on the organizational values and the individual's personal values. This is where you have the opportunity to help this person clarify their own personal values, which, as we talked about earlier, is important to accountability and responsibility. You want to discuss accountability and responsibility. Talk about when you make a mistake, you need to take responsibility for it. You need to understand how your actions affect other people. Be accountable for those actions. That sometimes it doesn't just affect you, it affects the rest of the team. And then the next area in mentoring that you want to focus on would be role-playing exercises. If you think about a lot of the areas that you train people in, you're probably not doing a lot of role-playing exercises in some key areas. And key areas would be like, what would you do if you were faced with this ethical dilemma? And role-play it out. Or role-play out a conflict resolution scenario. What would you do if a customer came to you and said this, or was irate and angry? How would you handle it? Role-playing exercises help create a higher level of responsibility in your organization. And then develop a career plan. This is another great area to mentor people in. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? What are your career goals? And then the last area of mentoring, share your experiences. What has gone right for you as a manager and leader? Where have you fallen down? And what would you do differently? You don't just share the good, but you share the bad too. You show people how you have learned from your mistakes and how they can learn from theirs. That's part of the mentoring process. Mentoring ingrains key areas of values, personal responsibility, and accountability. So spend time in mentoring people in the organizational values. Spend time in helping them clarify their own personal values. And mentor people in how to handle principle-based ethical dilemmas. Use that 360-degree evaluation tool to increase accountability and responsibility in your organization. So as you can see from everything that we've talked about in today's session, responsibility and accountability are the foundation to have a great organization. But what's even more important that you need to remember is this. Responsibility and accountability start with you.